Hello everyone, I'm FIDE Master Viktor Neustroev, and today we are diving into one of the most important and misunderstood parts of the game, the Rook endgame. It is said that most games are decided in the endgame, and when it comes to Rook endgames, one accurate move can be the difference between a win and a draw. Did you know that over 50% of all endgames involve rooks? Okay, Rooks are powerful in the endgame thanks to their long range and the ability to cut off the enemy king. But to win, you must master activity, king position, and technique. There are two basic principles and two precise positions that you should remember when playing rook in games. First, rook behind the passed pawn. The second, centralize your king. And two positions. One is Lucena position and the other one is the Philidor position. So this is what we are going to explore. Let's start with this example. What can you see in this position? White has extra pawn on a4 and it seems that white is winning. However, how exactly to win? We should keep our rook active and put it behind the pawn. Rook a3. Now we are going to advance, so black most likely has to stop it with rook a8. We advance, rook goes to a6, so it is a blockade, but this rook is passive compared to this rook, because this rook can move, but if the black rook moves, we can advance the pawn further. What then? Activate your king. What now? So in the game, black king went to c5, which allowed us to go to e4 with our king. Well, you may say, why so? Isn't it possible to, for example, continue with this move? Yes, it is. But what then? I can just simply make a rook move and wait until the pawn goes to f5. And then make another rook move, and finally I force the black king to move away. For example, if the king goes to e5, I can simply enter the enemy camp with my king and advance the pawn with the help of the king. And then black would have to sacrifice the rook for that pawn, which makes the white's position completely winning. So that's why they decided to keep the pawn on f7, but bring the king closer to the pawn, and white definitely moves the king to the other side. Finally, when the exchange of the rooks happened, the white king invented the enemy camp faster, and white was able not only to capture the pawn, but to promote their pawn as well. So here you may ask me, well, Victor, why black didn't play better? But how better do you want black to play here? Delivering a check, but what for? The main problem is that they have to keep their rook on a6. Once they move, it's a6. And they can move again, but white can spend with their active rook as many tempi as possible. For example, rook a2, rook a7, and finally there will be a rook exchange. Otherwise, white enters the king side and captures the f7 pawn anyway. Okay, that was an example when the rook was behind the passed pawn. If you look at this position, we have a completely opposite situation. This time white is a pawn up, like it was last time, but the rook is in front of the pawn. And because of that, it is a drawing position. And black don't really need to do anything here. What he needs to do is just to stay and wait. So, for example, it's white to move, white tries to bring his king, as it was last time. Black just waits with the king. So now the rook was attacked, it's time to move the rook. King comes closer, but finally when the king comes to attack the rook can move back. So it's active rook, it can move. And when white decides to protect the a7 pawn to be able to move the rook and then promote, black with his active rook can start checking from behind. Rook b1, for example. What then? King a5, another check. King b5, check. King c4, well, I can check, but actually I can just bring the rook back, because with this rook move, this rook cannot move. If this rook moves, the a7 pawn is lost. And this is how, with active rook, black can draw the game. The only thing is just to stay with this rook behind a passed pawn and attack the enemy king if needed. Now, let's take a look at this example. Looks like black is losing, they are down a pawn. Well, I would say black has even better chances to win than white. Why so? Because they have a central pawn and because their king is closer to the center. It's their move and they play king c7, while this king is cut off. So king g3, king d6, king g4, rook e4, check. And here white decided to go that way to try to attack the pawn and then support the pass pawn on the h file. King h5, d4, king g6, king e5, protecting here and potentially attacking there. b4 was played. Rook checks, so the king is forced to move. And now what? Rook f4. Why rook f4? Well, after the rook exchange that happened in the game, black promotes much faster. King g6, d2, f6, this, and black wins the game. Why? Because after f7, it's simply it's possible to stop this pawn. Well, how? For example, this move. Then it's possible to play something like that. Where does the king go? So let's say here. Then at least there is another check, and after king g6, queen d8. So we are able to control the f8 square with our queen, and that's it. Then the king may come closer, and after a series of checks, black wins all the pawns. Well, here you may say, well, it's because you exchanged the rooks. White shouldn't do this. Well, maybe white shouldn't do this, but how white should play? Rook e2, fine, king takes f5, b5, for example, to try to create a pass pawn there, because h3 is not possible. Then d3, rook d2, the rook becomes passive, and now the king, because it's in the center, can not only protect the pawns and attack the enemy ones, but now can support the pawn on d3, king e3, d2, and so on. Well, maybe the rook shouldn't be passive and shouldn't stay in front of the pawn. Okay, maybe let's keep the rook more active. Well, d2 is a bit suspicious here, but if you play this move and locate your rook behind the pawn, again, you win. There is nothing they can do. So check, king moves, and then d2, and white has to sacrifice their rook for that pawn on d1. So maybe that plan was originally wrong, but black had a significant advantage when they realized that it's possible to bring the king to the center and not only support the pawn on the d file, but protect the one on f6 and attack the other one, the enemy one, on f5. So with the king being in the center, you definitely have more chances to succeed. Now let's talk about these two positions that I would like you to remember. Please take a look at this position. White is almost winning, just one pawn move and the queen will be promoted. But how to make this pawn move? These squares are not available for the king, the rook is guarding them. Well, these are covered with the black king, so that's why the white king blocks the pawn. Well, you may say, what's the problem? Let's just deliver a check and chase the king away. Well, it's true. If the king goes that way, you play king f8 and then the next move you promote. And probably black has to sacrifice the rook. This is their only option. But what if they go that way? And we decide to play king f7 or king f8 and then try to promote. It doesn't work. Why so? Because this rook is active and starts checking you from behind. Rook f1, king g6, rook g1, king f6, rook f1 check, king g5, rook g1, and you still have to keep your king closer to the g7 pawn to not lose it. So, for example, king f6, and this situation repeats. That's why you have to remember this type of the position and the maneuver that white has to initiate. It's a rook lift. And this maneuver is also called the bridge. So white builds a bridge. Their rook was on c2, they go there, and then they do a rook lift. Well, you may say, what's the purpose? The rook is still on the e file. Well, this time this rook is on the 4th rank. For example, if let's say rook h2, then we can escape with the king. Now these checks are not so dangerous because at the final stage we are able to block this check with a rook and then we promote. Well, sometimes they try to attack our rook, but this is not a big problem. Keep your rook on the g file. Now you can move the king either here or there, depends on where this rook is located, and then your king is not required to support the pawn. The rook is already guarding it and you can successfully promote, for example. King e6, king there, check, you go there, and on the next move, you promote. So you may be afraid of a checkmate on the back rank, but here you promote to a queen with a check. However, if you don't want to calculate or you don't see it, just deliver a check on the 6th rank, chase the king away, and then promote. So it's winning. Remember, when you have such a situation, and doesn't really matter whether it's F, E, D, or C, or even B pawn, you still have a chance to do this maneuver. So check, chasing the king away, and the rook leave at least to the 4th rank. And then you can escape with your king. That was Lucena position. Now let me explain the so-called Philidor position. What you need to learn about this position is that if the king goes to the 3rd rank first, white loses. If the pawn goes first, it is a draw. Let me explain. For example, I play a random move which doesn't make any sense here, and the king goes to g3. What now? Well, we cannot move the rook away. Once it happens, for example, rook c8, they play rook b1. King e2, which is the only move, and with f3, they win the game. How? Well, let's say king e3, check, and then f2, and the pawn is promoted. It's protected by the rook from e1. Well, if the king goes that way, it's still f2, and then we promote. If king e2, we can include this. So that's why there is no possibility to make such a move. Well, how to play? Maybe we can move the rook back? Yes, it's possible, but now rook goes to h2. How does it work? There is a threat of a check which either wins the rook or maybe even exchanges the rooks. Doesn't matter if black exchanges the rooks, black is completely winning because of the pass pawn. What now? So king g1, this. This to pin the pawn, right? This. If the king goes there, well, you can play this move threatening a mate and then finally repeat the position and threaten checkmate on the other side. Rook moves back, you deliver a check. So if the king goes that way, then you threaten checkmate on that side, and after king g1 it's f2, chasing the king to f1 so that you can play rook h1 after. Or if, let's say, after this check they move that side, so you do another check, and then f2 is played with a check. If if king f1, then this, and now f2. So it's still winning. And if you want to not lose, you have to actually prevent the king coming to g3. You have to start with rook a3 and keep your rook on the 3rd rank. For example, if now the pawn moves, your rook is active enough to draw the game. Rook a8. And after king g3, you can deliver multiple checks. And finally, once the king goes too far, you can simply attack the f pawn and win it back. So even if they play f2, you can still take it. If you are black here, remember, try to deliver your king to the 3rd rank first. If you are white, try to prevent it by keeping your rook on the 3rd rank, and once he pushes the pawn, don't forget that you can only draw in case if you start checking from behind. Well, to master Rook Endgames, you don't need 100 patterns, but you do not need to know these 2 principles and these 2 positions. So practice the Lucena and Philidor positions and always activate your rook and centralize your king. Activity beats material in Rook Endgames more often than not. Do you want more training tips? Hit that subscribe button. That was FIDE Master Viktor Neustroev. Play smart, train smarter. I'll see you in the next video.